Because beyond what happened today, there is a much bigger issue on why the league did it. And for people to say it's a physical game, it's not, but there is a reality to what happens to players when they're done. If you can talk about that.
Yeah. First of all, this is good news that the league has chosen to fine Jerome Harrison $75,000. I don't think it's enough. I think, in my opinion, that the league should make this distinction. If you intentionally injure a player and damage a player to the point in which that player misses 1 or 2 games, the player causing that injury should also miss the same amount of time. That, in my opinion, would curtail this type of behavior because it is certainly intentional. And the other reason and I'm going to tell you something personally here, is because I had 4 concussions, and I have been dealing with headaches and blackouts and those kinds of things. All of the examinations and tests tell me that this is nothing medically that they can find, but this perhaps is related to all of the hits and all the injuries that I took as a football player. So what I'm saying is that this is more than just a player at 25 or 26 years old who gets hurt playing professional football, but this is the quality of life issue that these young people have to consider when they're older.
What are other NFL alumni saying to you? And I think that the other thing you need to take into consideration as I say that question is, of all the sports, NFL players have the shortest lifespan as far as playing in their respective leagues.
Well, the reason why this game has the shortest career span is because of you have people running into each other. And the bones and the body and the physiology of the body just wasn't meant to withstand this impact. I think survey and tests have shown that the equivalent of a typical contact in the National Football League would be an automobile hitting, running into a stopped or a post or something at 25 miles per hour. So you think about that, and you think about that brain just floating up there in that cranial cavity, just being banged around, and it's not meant for that.
In the case of Harrison, he was fined more because he was deemed a repeat offender. How do you take that violent action out of a person when they're trained from day one to be violent? I mean, really, we're taught that the first day you put on the pads in Pee Wee football. Go out there and hit somebody.
No, this is a coachable point. If you teach fundamental tackling technique and skills, then that technique and that skill is to lead with the shoulder, and the helmet goes aside of the player. You do not lead with this helmet, this object here that becomes essentially a launched projectile. When players have their hands at their side and they're leading with their helmet, there's nothing that you can say to me other than that player is trying to intentionally damage another individual.
Reggie, what goes through a player's mind when they're cutting through the middle and then going to make a catch?
That is perhaps the one thing that, as a wide receiver, that you deal with the first time you step on the field in professional football. It's cleaned up a lot today. You got to remember, these rules that are in effect today were not in effect when I played. All of these things that you see today that players are being fined for, these were all legal hits. My concern still is for the quality of life of these players after they no longer can play this sport. You're going to play this sport, if you're lucky, 4 years. If you're an exceptional player, you may play 9, 10, 12 years. If you play that long, that's only a short part of your lifespan. You're going to live a long time, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences of playing football in the NFL.
All right, last question for you. What does the NFL look like this Sunday that it didn't look like last Sunday? How does that directly affect the way guys are going to play?
I think the players know now that the move in the National Football League is towards suspending players. And so when a player is going to make a hit and he knows what his options are, he will then go back to the fundamental aspect of tackling, which is leading with your shoulder pad. That's why you have that shoulder pad. If you hit that player with a shoulder pad, you can still deliver a blow, but you're not trying to intentionally damage that player, because there's nothing that I can think of more harder than the crown of a helmet in pro football.
I lied. One more question. There have been critics this week, especially over the last 2 days, that said the league is overreacting to one given Sunday.
Well, to those who would say that the league is overreacting to one given Sunday, I would ask them to investigate what is called the 88 plan. And it is the plan that the National Football League has set aside, which means that anyone who has been diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's will receive $88,000 a year for health care, and named in honor of John Mackey, who was number 88 and who is suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's disease.